Hey y'all, this is AL Thick Madame and Cinnamon Sugar, and this is the recap review for Queen Sugar. Hopefully, I'll be a little bit more upbeat and get through this faster than I did the last one. Y'all, I am so tired. And that video, I think this is literally the third time that I have created a video. It was supposed to be uploaded on time, and I think I was so tired that I deleted it two different times. So, yeah, I am so sorry. I apologize. Let me go ahead and get into this though. So, this particular episode started out with Darla and Billy. They are in the sugar mill. They are going to be making sure that it is tidied up. There are other people helping with that effort because, they're going to have investors coming through from time to time. So, you want to make sure it looks what it needs to look like. And so, Billy starts talking to Darla and was like, we might need to go ahead and start sending everybody home. There's bad weather coming. And so she was like, oh, it's not supposed to really happen until later. And so she was like, you hear that? And you don't hear nothing. And she was like, when you hear nothing, that means that the animals have even gone to seek shelter, which is true. I'm a country girl too, because I think she said, I'm from the country. I guess that's just something that I can't get rid of. That instinct, you know what I'm saying? That constant internal reminder that hey, this is what's going on over here. But yeah, you don't hear nothing, and so they didn't went and seek shelter. I'm gonna need for you to do the same thing. And so she was like, yeah, okay, I think you're right. So now they're gonna tell everybody to go home so they can get home within a reasonable amount of time. If they need to band down the hatches, do what you need to do because it's supposed to be kind of bad. It's a possibility. Darla was confused because she was like, oh, I thought it was, the storm was shifting in another direction. And so she was like, I don't know. I think we supposed to get hit. So then we see Joaquin at the diner, Vaz Pies, and he looked at some type of way. Violet rolled up on him, was like, what's going on with you? And she's not buying nothing that he's selling. And so she told him, you need to just go ahead and tell me what it is, what's going on. And so he was like, I'm worried because I haven't heard from my mom. My brother keeps asking me about my mama and what she got going on or whatever, and we haven't heard from her. And I don't want to lie to him. I don't want to keep anything from him, but at the same time, I don't know what's going on with her. So Violet is trying to tell him that he's going to have to keep the faith because his mama has been through a lot already. So in her mind, you keeping the faith and just continuously believing that things are going to be okay after everything that you've already been through. The hardest part is already over. So you're going to have to get that faith going so that you can say, you know what? It's okay. We're going to get through it. Some kind of way we're going to come out on top because, ain't no telling what's going on. I know it must be hard for him because essentially he feels like a lot of stuff is falling on his shoulders because he's the oldest. He got to keep an eye on his brother. It's just too much going on. So, in the meantime, in between time, Violet and Hollywood are going to be their foster parents. And whenever you need to talk to them. You know what I'm saying? At this point in time, worrying about it is not going to help anything. And she had to tell him, like, look, the stuff that you're worrying about, there's nothing that you could do about it. You can't pray about something and continue to worry about it. That is defeating the purpose. So you need to get your faith up and you need to focus on the things that you can control. And so she basically told him, like, you going to school, you working here and stuff like that, being a good brother, do you think you can handle those things? And he was like, yeah, I think I can. So just focus on the things that you actually can do. So Ralph Angel ended up picking up Micah from the airport or where he came in from, a bus. I don't know where he came from. But anyway, he ended up picking him up. And so he was like, yeah, why you ain't call your Aunt Nova? She looking at him sideways for that NFT because she told him, don't do it. And by the time he halfway wanted to listen to her, it was too late. So he doesn't know the backstory. And at some point, he is going to figure it out. And Ralph Angel has kind of figured it out, even though he don't know that that's the reason why Nova really ain't, fooling with him like that right now, because she is furious with him. So he was like, yeah, I saw what's going on. And so I feel like everybody be looking at Ralph Angel like he just like country bumpkin. He don't know nothing about nothing that's going on. And so when he brought up the fact that he knew about the NFT, he was like, "Oh, I see that meme going around, or whatever he called it. He didn't call it an NFT. I saw that GIF running around, rolling around, or around on the internet or whatever." So he said something about that, and he was like, "Oh yeah, I didn't know you saw that or whatever." I'm like, "Boy, get out of here." He gets a phone call, and Ralph Angel was like, "Look, you and I need to spend some time together. When was the last time we spent time together, like one on one?" And so he over here trying to rush him so he can get back to the house so he can start doing other little random stuff that ain't gonna help him in life, but whatever. And so Ralph Angel was able to get him to go with him. They're gonna go over to the land and board up some stuff, try to preserve the house even though they really don't have a right to be on the land right now. So it is what it is. So then we see Violet at her place. Hollywood on the phone with her, setting it off like, you need to get home right now. And she was like, "I already am on the way. Joaquin already to set up all this stuff. And we done did everything we need to do to protect this building." Hollywood was like, "What about the sandbags?" And so she was like, "Yes, that's the one thing that we forgot." He was like, "I knew she forgot something." So he told her, "You better get home in 20 minutes. She was like, "All right, I will be there in 20 minutes. He was like, "Countdown starts now." Hollywood don't play, and it really is a countdown going on. So I'm like, "Oh my gosh, no, it's a mess." So he got to go get him, line him in front of around the building, in front of the front door, so that if there's any flooding that happens, they ain't really got to deal with no damage like that. And so anyway, now we see the boys. They're at the house. Dante, well, it's only right now Dante and Hollywood at the house. And so the storm is about to come in. And so he's outside. He's not outside. He's looking outside, excuse me. Looking outside, Hollywood, it was like, look, it's something cooking in them clouds, what's going on. And so he talking to him, and he sees his hand, and so he trying to avoid what didn't happen. He was like, "I thought we talked about this. I thought we resolved all that, and you ain't have to fight no more." He was like, "They still basically keep trying me." Hollywood had to explain to him that he already saw what the handwriting was going to be on the wall for him, and so he had to rely on his comedic genius to stop being bullied or to avoid being bullied. He was like, "What? You were being bullied?" He was like, "Yeah, I was being bullied." And, it is what it is. Why this man gonna tell him about Richard Pryor? And then look at him like, how dare you not know about Richard Pryor? And then proceeded to say, "I'm gonna show you what you've been missing, but you can't tell Violet." Because when he said that, I was like, I don't even think I've seen the Richard Pryor stuff, all of his stuff in its entirety yet. Because it's a lot. It's really raw. And if you ain't ready for that, you don't need to watch it. Like, it is raw. That's why I was like, this is a child. He is really a child. Now, I ain't gonna lie. If it hadn't been Joaquin, okay. The brother, he is a lot younger than him. Excuse me. Maybe not a lot, but yeah, he is younger. But the fact that he had to tell him not to tell Violet, I was like, you're wrong. You're wrong. So anyway, Violet is packing up, about to head out. She on the phone with Nova, trying to make sure Nova is getting her behind in the house. This heifer talking about, "Oh, she finna batten down the hatches now," and all of that. And so she was like, "You need to call me once you're done. If you don't call me, I'm gonna know something happened. I ain't got time for this. You have a history. Every time something pop off with a storm or something like that, you in the midst of it. Don't nobody have time, heifer." So she was like, "I promise you, I will call. I'm about to go do that right now. The storm is getting closer." As soon as she opened the door, and I knew it, Calvin was standing outside the door. I was like, "Now, sir, what are you doing here?" So she looking shook. You already know, every time she see him, she feels some type of way. But anyway, she ended up looking at him, told him that he needed to leave. And so he was like, "I needed to see you." And so she was like, "I don't want to see you." And I was like, "Not you putting your foot down. You don't put your foot down, ma'am." So you're talking, and he in his feelings. And so he was like, "I just wanted to make sure that you were okay. I just so happened to be in town." And so I'm just like, "Now, sir." He was like, "At least let me make sure that everything is weatherproof for you and all of that. Can I at least do that for you? And she looked at him and she thought about it, and then she was just like, shook her head. She couldn't even say the words, yes, you can, make sure all this is done. By the time he did all of that, you know what I'm saying? I'm just like, now ma'am, you know you're wrong. You know you're wrong. It is what it is, though. We're going to see later on what's going on. So we end up seeing Darla at the house with True. And so the storm is about to come in, and she hasn't been able to talk to Ralph Angel in a good little while because she already knew that he had to go pick Micah up. And so she ended up leaving a message for him. So a phone call came right back in, and so she just answered the phone and was like, oh, did you get a chance to listen to your message? Whatever. You could see how happy she is just to hear from him. Thinking it's him, rather. It's Chase on the phone. He over here threatening her. She done hung up the phone. And I'm just like, girl, you need to tell your husband. Like, every time she get off the phone, she like this, slide down in the chair, everything. Like, oh my gosh, about to have an anxiety attack. Like, I'm just like, girl. Okay, y'all. So Ralph Angel and Micah ended up making it over to the land, and Landry and them, they did board up windows and stuff, but they did a shoddy job. And so he was just like, we need to get this board back up here before it rot or whatever. And so he nails one of them back in place. And so Micah was like, all right, we need to hurry up and get on to the house. We need to go home before the storm really come in. He was like, this is home. And so he was like, we need to just let this clear up before we head back out. We should be driving in this. So let's go inside. So Micah looking like, dang, and go on in the house with him. I'm like, yeah, you better go on somewhere and sit down. Listen, y'all, I will never forget when Hurricane Katrina hit. I didn't think it was going to do nothing. Yeah, I didn't think it was going to do nothing. I left out, went to school. A lot of my classes ended up getting canceled. I went to Winn-Dixie and had to tell them folks I wasn't going to work the next day because my parents had to tell me, Heifer, if you don't go in there and tell them folks that you ain't coming to work. I kept telling them, they ain't going to do nothing. They ain't going to do nothing but rain. I ain't think it was going to do nothing. I really didn't. And I stayed out all day. It just rained a little bit. Like, it was just raining. I'm used to rain. So I was like, it ain't gonna do nothing. Y'all, when I finally started driving home, I couldn't even see. I had to creep home. It was raining super hard. I don't know how I made it home. Now, God knew what he was doing because by the time I did start trying to go home, there were trees down and they had moved the trees out of the road by the time I was going to be coming through. So, I think my daddy notified me of that, but I wasn't leaving from where I was anyway. I had went over to somebody's house. I forgot what year was that. Yeah, I went over to somebody's house and I thought I was fine. I didn't think nothing of it. I was like, okay. It's like as I started to get closer to home, it's like it got worse. I was like, why is it getting worse? I don't know. It was bad. I really did not realize how bad it did not hit me as to how bad it was until I started heading home. And I was like, oh my gosh, am I gonna make it's blinding rain. I literally cannot see the lines in the middle of the road or the line on the side of the road. I gotta hope I'm in the street. There was nobody in front of me most of the time. I had to just creep. And the only thing that saved me while I was within the city limits of Montgomery, Alabama, was the fact that there were traffic lights that were still active, meaning the power hadn't gone out yet. So, yeah, they might have been swaying in the wind and I could barely see them, but I could see them. And that was what was kind of directing me. I was like, Lord, please don't let no animal or a person be in the street because they're going to be hit today. Even though I was driving slow. And I'm talking about it was raining so hard. I don't know how I made it home, but I did, y'all. So anyway, moving right along. So we see Billy at home with her mother-in-law, her new mom to be, her new stepmom. I said mother-in-law, I'm sorry. Stepmom to be. I don't know why I can, Sandy. I'm like, dang, I can't never think of the woman's name. And so she was like, I'm so glad you came home. Her daddy is out of town visiting his friend. And of all times for him to be out of town, the first storm that they would have, you would think they would weather it together, but He out of town. Ain't nothing he can do. Like, he literally cannot leave out. So he asked her to come to the house to be with her, and she was just like, I'm glad that you came. The guy who was a part of the co-op, I think his name might be Mike. I might be wrong. I don't know. But anyway, he is supposed to be coming by later on to set up the generator so that the generator could kick in later on if they lose power. So he ended up showing up. He looking how he looking. And you could just see she here for it. And, he was like, oh, it's good to see you. And I'm like, yes, Lord. Yes, Lord. That man lived for her. And I'm here for it. So Joaquin and Violet have made it to the house. Joaquin is very, like, he gets triggered. And it's just too much when storms and stuff happen. Ever since his uncle was killed on that land, on the Borderlone land, y'all remember like a season or two ago, however many seasons ago it was, people died or whatever when that last situation happened? Yeah. Ever since that happened, he has been really, really, really triggered, and he does not do well during storms and all of that. So he's not doing well. Every time you hear anything happening outside, he's just sitting there in a daze. Dante had to explain to Hollywood that he doesn't do well during storms. So Violet trying to figure out why he looking the way he looking. Like, it's so bad he done got up and walked off, and now he is really in a daze, stuck, ain't breathing. Violet had to touch this boy, had to grab his hands and tell him to breathe. When I tell y'all the growth that Violet has, it's y'all, it just has done something to me. It really be doing something to me when she just shows her growth, and she just always comes off as so hard. Now, we ain't finna never try to make it seem like she's soft. She's not now soft because she has softened her heart towards certain people, and she has become sympathetic to certain situations. But yeah, I'm so here for this. I am so here for it. But she was talking to him, and ended up revealing about the uncle who got killed, and she was like, that was a very tragic situation. We all think about that all the time. It was terrible what happened to your uncle, and we wish it didn't happen. And she's just trying to coach him through that moment. It's a lot. So anyway, the storm is underway. Calvin is at Nova's house, and so she's trying to avoid the conversation about their relationship, and eventually start talking to her, wanting to know what she got going on. And so he was just like, look, I wanted to come see you. I needed to see you. And I know that there's an us. She tried to tell him there is no us. We ain't got nothing to give up on because we're over with. We have tried this several times. Every time we get to a point like this, we normally see each other. We become crazy. We live in the moment, and it never works. There is no story. The story is over for us. He don't want to believe that. He can't let her go. So anyway, we end up seeing True and her mama, Darla, at the house, and they're having a leak. And I'm like, golly. So she pulled out a little bowl, and she's about to like tell a story to True. And the story basically is about her, Blue, and Ralph Angel. And it's a really sad situation. And you know what she went through with her addiction and all that. And when he had went away. And apparently this is a story that she used to always tell Blue. And it was like his favorite story. She actually has Kenya and everything. And basically they are referring to the toys in the book. The toys represent them, Blue and True. And so the addition to the story, of course, is True. And they're talking about we'll never let anybody take that toy. And, she's fearful that Chase is going to take Blue away. And it's just too much going on. Definitely a situation that Ralph Angel is very worried about, because even though that is not his biological child, he loves him as if it is. He cares for him as if it is. He knows no different. It just is what it is. So anyway, Micah and Ralph Angel are held up in there talking, and He ends up talking to Darla. They FaceTime one another. He's explaining that he is at the house, and he ended up like showing her the room. She was like, "Oh my gosh, how?" And it just is what it is. And she was like, "You don't have to explain anything to me." And he was just like, she was like, "I haven't seen you smile like that in a while." And so he was like, I can't explain it. I'm at home. Like, when I'm at home, it feels like heaven. I'm like, I know that you see all the teeth. Like, he is so happy to be at the house. And so she was like, do what you got to do, ride the storm out, be safe. And, hey, so the electricity ends up going out over there at Prosper House. But Billy and Sandy are having a heart to heart. And she was just like, we can talk. And, she's over here talking about, Sandy over here talking about her old situations. And it's really, really good that they are bonding. So while they're in the middle of talking, old boy walked in and he was like, it's going to take me a minute to get the generator up and running, but I'm still working on it. And so he was like, okay, man, he done walked out the room, Billy watching him walk away. And then so Sandy was like, you like that man? And she was like, what you talking about? She was like, girl. Like, I'm talking about before he closed the door. She was like, you sweet on him. I was like, ma'am, why you had to say that when the door wasn't even closed yet? So, it just is what it is. And so she was like, she's trying to calm her down. It's raining. She was like, let's do this. She held her hand and she was like, do you hear this? They're talking, they're listening to the rain. I love the rain. I love it. I do the same thing. I sit there and I just listen. I love the rain. And so she was like, yeah, my mom used to do this. And, she told her pretty much, she was like, I never felt like I could talk to my mama. I wanted to be able to talk to my mama about everything, and my mama she didn't hear me. So she feels some type of way because apparently I think she went to her mama to tell her about Jimmy Dale, and I guess she just wrote it off as her being a fast girl or something, or just thinking, no, and going along with the rumor. Like, why would you believe everybody else over your child? I can't. I know some children be lying, but girl, bye. My child telling the truth until I find out otherwise. But so she was just like, Sandy had to tell her that despite, that particular aspect, you can still use the beautiful things about your mama that, made her who she was. You can still use those things to your advantage. You can still use those things. And like listening to God when it's raining and, little stuff like that. It was really sweet. She was, really helpful talking to her. Billy needed that because Billy is still struggling to get through that situation with Billy Dale. That was very true. Like, if you have not been through something like that, somebody lying on you, they doing things, they over here making it seem like I'm over here, like, I can't stand for somebody to lie. I can't stand somebody to lie on me. I can't stand somebody to lie on my box. And those of y'all who watch my What a Day post, y'all already know. Somebody out here lying right now as if they have had a piece of me and ain't had nothing. Ain't had so much as a handshake. But they over here lying like they done had me. But anyway, but he over here raping folks and doing things. Jimmy Dale over here doing the most. I can't. So anyway, Violet and Hollywood at the house, and the children are asleep. Thank goodness. And so they're talking about how they've gone through a lot, and that everything that has been going on with those children's lives, despite all that, they've been fighters, and because of this situation that happened with their uncle, they feel like even though there was a terrible situation, in some way that was meant to happen because that led them to this moment. For them to be trusted enough to have the parents say, y'all need to be with them. I want y'all to be the legal guardians and all this other stuff. Like, everything ended up coming full circle. So until that time comes, they are going to be their legal guardians, and it is what it is. So now we see Nova and Calvin still talking. And so they're just having a good old conversation. So despite everything that Calvin is saying, she's explaining to him that, their story has ended. She's moved on. It is what it is. He keeps having a recurring dream about the two of them as old and gray. They have grown old together, sitting in a rocking chair, still in love. And he cannot get that out of his head. He can't move forward. And she's trying to tell him, you're going to have to figure out how to do it. The story going to have to end a different way for you because our story is over. I'm just like, child. He ended up asking, do you have somebody in your life? Like, are you dating somebody? And she said, yes, I am. And he was like, does he make you happy? Does he treat you right? I was like, woo, child, Lord, it's a lot. But yeah, he just want to make sure that she good. And I'm like, I see what it is. And I was like, please don't do this. You've been doing good. Look like they about to start kissing and everything else. But he asked her, do you still love me? Do you still miss me? And she was like, I think of you from time to time. You do cross my mind. You know what I'm saying? It is what, like, she lived for him. I thought they was going to get married and live happily ever after. I'm just saying, like, I did not like how that situation was because that man had a whole wife. He should have got divorced first. So y'all already know how I feel about stuff like that. Like, don't do that. Don't do that. But she ended up having self-restraint. I'm glad. That's great for Nova because y'all know how she normally get down. So Micah is walking through the house. We see where they used to do markings to see how tall they've gotten. And he talking about he hadn't stopped through there for a while. And, he forgotten about all that stuff. So they talking, having a little moment. And then they get a knock at the door. Somebody talking about they need refuge. And, of course, they want to know, are you alone? Is it a group of y'all out there? Like, is this going to be an ignorant situation? Like, we don't know what's going on. So the person talking about they by themselves. Child, tell me why when they open the door, it's Chase. Of course, Ralph Angel don't know who this man is. So he didn't let him in because he says he's by himself. So at least it's 2 against 1. So if it is really one person and we got to beat him down, I feel like that's the way they're going. I know Ralph Angel pretty much can handle himself. But it is what it is. So yeah, it's too much. It's really too much. So they done went back to Nova again. Calvin is really, really struggling with letting Nova go. And she telling him, you're going to have to let me go. You're going to have to figure out a new story because it's not going to work. It's over with, sir. And so he over here feeling some type of way because he was like, you told me that you felt this type of way about me and all this other stuff. And she was like, I wrote that before I found out what you did. So now he kind of feels some type of way, but it's like, sir, you turned your head a whole nother direction. Even though that person was above you, it was wrong. You should have went to somebody and said something. You never did. So it is what it is. But she was like, you want to know how I feel? She told him exactly how she felt. Of course, she still loves him and all this other stuff, but they cannot keep doing this back and forth. We keep trying this situation and it don't work. She still sees him the same way she saw him when she found out his truth, and she cannot get past that. So it just is what it is. So he gonna have to figure it out, and he gonna have to work some stuff out within himself to get over it. So we end up seeing Darla at the house with True. She feeding her, and oh my gosh, she is so gorgeous. I really can't. Oh, she's so cute. So while they talking, we getting to the end of the episode. Micah is having a good old conversation with Chase. So then Ralph Angel come back in the room. And so he's over here. This man talking about all this stuff. He talking about, with all this Me Too stuff going around. And so Ralph Angel just sitting there listening. Child, it gets to a point where he's saying a little bit too much familiar things going on. You doing too much. He was like, okay, so who you talking about? It's her name Darla. Then he set it off. And he had to haul off and hit this man. If Michael wasn't there, that man was going to die. That's just the 1, the 2, and the 3 of it all. That's the long story short. He rolled up on that man and set it off and was like, see, because Michael didn't know what was going on. Y'all know Michael be having them slow moments. He was like, Ralph Angel, what's going on? Uncle Ra, what's wrong? What's going on? He was like, this the man. And he didn't say man. He was like, this the person who raped Darla. Oh, God. I was like, no. Man, he beat that man down. So anyway, he ended up making him get out. Like I said, if it hadn't been for Micah, that man would have been dead. Long story short, Calvin ended up leaving in the morning and he created a new story and he went on by his business. Hallelujah.